Shalom and welcome to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. This is a recording of our weekly Exploring the Parasha class with Rabbi Rebecca Schatz and Rabbi Matt Shapiro.
We're going to fast forward a bit through some of the story of how Yitzchak needs a wife. Avram sends a servant. He goes and finds Rivka. Oh, Rivka!
Yeah.
It's you.
That is me.
It's her namesake that we're going to be talking about a little bit.
Okay.
No, it's your namesake.
It's not why my parents named me that, but okay, we're going to just keep going.
Great. So we're going to pick up when Rebecca is brought to Isaac, when she finally comes to meet him. So let's pick up end of chapter 24. How's that sound?
Sure.
Great. End of chapter 24. We're actually just going to focus on one verse. It's been a while since we've only one verse.
Sure.
It's a one verse kind of
Bereshit, I think we only did one verse, didn't we?
I can't remember that far back.
4 weeks ago.
I can barely remember an hour ago. Where am I? Who are you? We're going to pick up end of chapter 24. Yitzchak goes out in the field, Vayetze lasuach basadeh, lifnot arev, to greet the evening. Some might say Vayisa inavi looked up, Vayar, and he looks, and he made malim ba'im, camels are coming. What was it? Vatisa Rivka et Neah, in turn Rivka raised her eyes, V'tera Yitzchak, she sees Isaac. Vatipol me'al hagamal. We just have to linger in that for a second. She's so excited to see him. She falls right off a camel. It's like something out of a rom-com. What kind of love is this? It's
falling off camel love.
Falling off camel kind of love. That's the kind of love they've got until they start bickering over their kids. But for right now, it's a falling off kind of camel kind of love. Vatomer Alev, and she says to the servant, Mi ha'ish halazeh. Who is that camel falling off kind of guy that I'm checking out? Haholech basedeh likratenu, who's coming out of the field towards us. Not, so you think she could imply who that might be, but she just fell off a camel, so maybe she hit her head. Vayom ha'aved hu adoni. That's my boss. Vatikach hatzaif vatitkas, and she took her scarf, her veil, and she covered herself. She was very firm, covered herself. Vaisapera abeli Yitzchak. Kol hadvarim asher asan, and the servant told Isaac all the things he'd done. He gave him the rundown, just like we're giving you the rundown now. Okay, here's the verse we're going to be focusing on.
Okay.
Chapter 24, verse 67. Long chapter.
I know. When you said 67 the first time, I thought you meant 6 through 7.
Nope.
You just made a mistake, but you did not.
I never miss.
Okay.
Swish. Verse 67. Okay, here we go. Vayiviaha Yitzchak ha'ohela. And Isaac brought her, ha'ohela, Sara imo. Yitzchak brought her into the tent of Sara, his mother, who, this is after all an ironically named Parasha, had passed away recently. Vayikach et Rivka, and he, vatihi lo isha, he took Rivka and I don't know how to break down those verbs, really, because it's a double verb, but you really just translate it. He took her to be his wife. That's like he took her and she became for him his wife.
Right. Well, it implies that he slept with her and that's what made her his wife.
Right. The old-fashioned way.
The old-fashioned way.
And he loved her. Vayinachem Yitzchak acharei. Yitzchak found comfort after his mother, but implied after his. So, just to speak for a moment about why some of the reasons why I find this verse interesting and how it sort of lines up with the ideas that we've been playing with about mental health and spiritual growth. I think there's a few interesting pieces here. One of which is the idea of love and relationship, right? That we only hear that Yitzchak loves Rivka after he marries her, which is certainly not marries her, which is certainly not the way we think about things in 2021. But just interesting to raise this idea of when and how love emerges in a relationship.
It's also the first time that the word love is used in the Torah.
That's usually my gig.
Did you know that?
I think I knew that somewhere, but it's usually my deal to say when something first shows up in the Torah.
There you go.
You're going to put me out of a job.
Well, I often talk about this when I'm at a wedding, so that's how I know it.
Oh.
I share this bit.
What do you share about this bit? I'm curious to hear how you bitify it. Although if anyone is listening who you might one day have Rabbi Schatz officiate at your wedding, she didn't come up with this special for you. Sorry.
No, I often talk about it around the Bedekin because Rebecca, we often think about the veiling. You actually said it a second ago. Oh, she's so frum. We often think about it in a way in which she's covering herself like we might think of more traditional women covering themselves in different ways because of tzniut, because of modesty, or because of their marital status.
Right.
But actually, I think, and I believe this original teaching came from some learning that I did with Rabbi Sean Fieldsmeyer, that I actually think that she veils herself because she needs to remember that she's also a person, that she's not just now part of a relationship, but that she's still Rebecca and he's still Isaac, and the things that you love about one another don't go away just because now you're in partnership. In fact, you need to hone in and you need to work on those things that make you the best version of yourself. And hopefully your partner is helping you with that, obviously. Right. But you need to hone in on those things when you're in relationship because those are the things that your partner loves you for. So the veiling of her, and I'm doing a wedding on Sunday, so when you all listen to this, I will have done a wedding on Sunday. That's a big part of the veiling moment is that you are reminding yourself to find yourself even in moments of partnership, that they're not just about who you become because of your partner or in moments of relationship, but that you too are an individual with unique needs and unique qualities. And hopefully that's part of what your partner loves about you and finds attractive in you.
For sure. Although in counterpoint to that, we only hear about him loving her well after they're married. Right?
But does it actually say in the Torah that they are married, or does it just say that it does? It uses the word married?
Right beforehand, because it says, Vayikach et Rivka v'tihi lo le'isha.
That doesn't say married. That just means that he took her as his wife.
You can't see me because it's an audio recording. I am currently rolling my eyes at Rabbi Schatz.
But all I'm saying is that I think that I get what you're saying.
Where else would it say that they're married? Like it doesn't. It's not like 3 verses later. And oh, by the way, that was just a figure of speech.
No, 100%. But all I'm saying is that I think that back in the day, people used to come to love one another from having these experiences together. They were young. They got married young. They didn't know one another, but they got married because it was a good business transaction for their families.
Right.
And so they learned to love one another, which, again, we don't hear that about Abraham and Sarah. Right? So. Oh,
totally. No, that piece for sure. I'm just saying that it sounds like when you frame it for married couples, and I'm sure you will do / you did a wonderful job at this wedding. It sounds like when you're framing it for couples, you're talking about how this idea of love first comes up in this story, connected to her maintaining her sense.
No, not that the love comes up first there. Just the fact that in the veiling moment that she's already beginning to realize that if you lose yourself in the relationship, that will not allow you to feel fully loved or feel as though you are providing the person who the person first found love in. Not that that's when she first comes to love
That's him. Lovely. That's a lot to be hanging on those 3 words, but that's a lovely idea.
Which 3 words?
That she veils herself. There's a lot getting interpolated.
I just don't love the idea that it's because she needed to cover her face because she's a woman, which is obviously the reason why traditionally a veil is used at a wedding. I think the idea of a woman being able to see
the veiling as a move towards building love in the relationship and maintaining identity within.
Maintaining identity. Yes, exactly. Okay. And that can build love. And that can help build love, that it doesn't just have to be that love is something that that is only about the moments of togetherness, but also the moments where individuals grow, and that love grows with them. This is much more than I say typically at a wedding. I'm glad we unpacked it.
It's a long wedding.
Yeah, a really long wedding.
Rabbi Schatz, wedding ceremony with Rabbi Schatz. Yeah. 5 hours long. And that's just at the Bedekin.
Yeah, that's just the Bedekin.
It's an all-day affair.
3-hour Bedekin.
Yeah. It sounds like a party.
Mm-hmm.
I was even. What was I saying? I don't even remember what I was saying.
I just brought the fact that that Ve'yehaveha is the first.
Oh, first time to talk.
Yeah.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. But you were then going to talk about marriage and love and relationships and mental health and spirituality. Not to give anything away.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
No, but you're talking about like how you like talking about Hasidut too. I mean, you're talking about building healthy relationships. Mm-hmm. Even if I still think the love piece is a stretch, but it's a lovely idea.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And hi, Rabbi Schoenfield. Lovely draft. No, just the one other piece I was going to name was this idea. Does the recording still work? We're both getting calls as this is happening. I just got a call from Rabbi Hillary Chorney. Rabbi Schatz just got a call from Rabbi Amanda Russell. So we're very popular.
Very popular with the rabbis.
We know a lot of rabbis.
Yeah.
Rabbis and the rabbis who love them.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah?
I'm actually currently with Rabbi Amanda Russell, which is why you're listening to this as a podcast.
What do you mean you're currently with
I mean,
her?
like, as you're listening, I
you
am
don't know
with
when
Rabbi Amanda Russell.
Maybe they listen to it after this weekend.
Yeah, maybe. Okay. All right, we should.
You don't know where you are when people are listening to this podcast.
That is very good. Okay.
I missed a shot with a water bottle. Okay. What? They should get the experience just like we're on Zoom together with all of its wonderful...
So the that might
no, hold on. I was going to say something else.
Oh, okay.
Really?
Okay, well,
you just keep distracting me. What I was going to say before I was so rudely interrupted by every rabbi we know calling us is you can't see this. Anyone, no one's on video. Rabbi Schatz is having a fit on my couch. Also, in case you're hearing glass clinking, it's because I'm eating lunch while we're doing this. Just so everyone can have a picture in their mind of what's happening.
Okay. Mental and spiritual health.
I'm disruptive to Rabbi Schatz's mental and spiritual health. This idea of comfort, this idea that through love and relationship that Isaac finds comfort, and on the one hand that it seems a little uncomfortable and a little fraught and vaguely Oedipal, that he's finding comfort through love and intimacy specifically in his mother's tent, right? There's something that feels, vaguely uncomfortable about that. Yeah. And at the same time that there's, I think, a lot of resonance in the idea that when we're having a tough time or grieving or moving through a difficult experience, that it's through love and connection and intimacy with others, intimacy in all of its forms, right? Intimacy obviously isn't just sexual intimacy. Intimacy in all of its forms, that's how we can find comfort and move through that pain by connecting with other people in a loving and close way. So that's the other piece that jumps out to me in this realm of like, what is it to, be spiritually centered, mentally healthy when you're grieving? I mean, I think, I'm sure you hear this often as well, that when people are mourning, they talk about the role of community in helping them get, and that's part of what was so difficult when we were in lockdown during COVID, that people were saying Kaddish in their homes by themselves, and people were having funerals when there was basically nobody there and we couldn't really do Shiva, and that as we're now moving out of that people are again able to, even though they're in the backyard, that people are able to have Shiva Minyanim, that people are able to say Kaddish in person, and that even though that's of course painful, that there is something supportive and comforting by being around others and being in a relationship with them when you're grieving. So I think that's found in this too.
There's this beautiful Rashi that is really a midrash from Breshit Rabbah about how Sarah used to light the candles and bake the challah, and those things stopped when Sarah...
First she lights the candles.
Then she drinks the wine.
There's a matriarch knocking at my door.
What's happening? Oh, very good.
Knocking, 1, 2, 3.
This song is actually called the Dinosaur Song, so we just switched out dinosaur for matriarch, which you can drosh if you'd like. So Rashi talks about how when Sarah was living, those things were happening for Shabbat. Though it actually doesn't say Shabbat, which is interesting. I guess it's just implied.
Implied Shabbat.
That from one Shabbat... Oh, no, it does. It says from one Shabbat to the next. Okay, sorry. From one Shabbat to the next, that these things were kind of apparent in the tent. And then when Sarah dies, the candles go out and the challah is not being made. But then when Rebecca comes back, they reappear. And I think that though this is a midrash and who knows if that was specifically happening or the roles that each of them took on, it is interesting to think about whether in grief or just in partnership in general, that there are certain people in our lives who we try to emulate when we are finding partnership, again, whether that's romantic or just friendship or communal kind of support and satisfaction based on the things that we've experienced before us. And so I remember when right after my uncle died and I moved to Israel, one of the things that was most supportive for me and that I found the most comfort in was finding people who had similar qualities that he did, that could kind of fill those holes in my bucket, so to speak, with his absence. And, there are people that you are drawn to based on the experiences and the love that you have for other people in your life. And so I think that's what's happening here with Rebecca in terms of what Sarah brought to Isaac in his life. And yeah, for sure, there's like a little bit of this Oedipal relationship going on, but also just the very
let's also,
classic,
this was also in a cultural context in which they intentionally sought out relatives to marry. So.
Oh, totally. But I think it's also just this context of even in the 21st century, you are drawn to people who remind you of others that you enjoy being around, and so you end up being around people who are similar in those ways.
That's true.
I often tell Rabbi Shapiro that he reminds me of my brothers, so maybe that's why I'm able to tolerate him a little bit more.
Although all of your brothers are younger than you, and I am older than you.
That is a good point.
Technically, as the crow flies. Yeah.
Correct.
Did you have any other? There was one other love piece I wanted to bring up. Did you have anything else on grieving specifically that you wanted to?
Mine is actually mostly on Vayinachem, but
okay, great. So go for it. There's a love piece I have, but we can hang on.
Is yours from Kedushat Levi?
Sure is.
Oh right. We found it together. Right, I forgot it. Okay, so I'll do the other two pieces. So Sforno says something that I thought was really sad, but also beautiful in terms of then the Rebecca piece. Sforno says that until this moment in the story, Isaac had actually refused consolation for the death of his mother, but that because Rebecca emulated so many aspects of who Sarah was, both in his life and in terms of characteristics, he was able to receive that comfort. It's really, really interesting. And I'm actually not so sure what to do with that, other than I remember that Rabbi Eddie Feinstein said at Shiva from my uncle, same uncle, that he wishes he could write a book of all the things you shouldn't say at a Shiva call. And this kind of, I don't know, maybe speaks to that a little, that maybe you're drawn to people during those moments who can say the right things, be the right kind of presence, and maybe that was Rebecca for him where others hadn't been, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah. Well, it also brings to mind for me, there's this idea that has taken hold in our culture the idea of the 5 stages of grief.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right? Which I didn't know these off the top of my head. I did quickly Google them. Just
to be transparent.
Full transparency. But denial and isolation, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Now, like 2 notes on that. One is that, of course, it's interesting to see like the first one that's listed is denial and isolation. Right, and it's sometime after the death that Rivka comes. So it might be that it's something about her, and it might also be that he was more in a place where he was ready to be in acceptance of it. You know, I think there's something to that too. And second thought, second thought A and B. Second thought A, it's not like once you've achieved a stage, you're out of it. And B, there was sort of some work done after they were initially put out there that like. It's not always linear in the way that they were listed. So, right, you might have a period of denial and then a period of bargaining and then a period of acceptance and then back to some denial and then back into some anger, right? Like it's not necessarily linear, but to Sforno's sort of intuitive point, like maybe he just wasn't ready to really connect with other people. I mean, I've seen mourners like that. There are mourners who really do want to be around other people. There are mourners who really like, you can come for me, but then get out of my house. Right. I really don't want to be around other people right now.
Well, I think that also plays into something we've talked a lot about over the course of this podcast, just, being an introvert versus an extrovert and really recognizing that so much more during this pandemic of what kind of energy do I need in those moments, right? There's lots of... And also within a family, it could be very different. So when you're sitting Shiva, if you have a big family, there might be some members of the family that really want that closeness and really want that supportive community, and others who just want to be alone or just want to be with each other as opposed to an entire kind of group of people outside of that.
Right. Well, and that can be very challenging if there's members of the same family who have very different needs.
Right. Chizkuni actually plays off of this Sforno piece and says that now that Isaac had become comforted, it actually means that he had come to terms with the death of his mother. So speaking to your point, that like he was now ready to actually receive that. But he comes to terms with the death of his mother when he sees that his wife possesses the virtues that she had been famous for, which is really beautiful. That, I mean, it kind of actually loops all of these now in like that Breshit Rabbah piece and the Sforno piece of, he wasn't necessarily looking for it, but it was clear that he was more connected to somebody who possessed those qualities and those attributes than someone who didn't. Right. To kind of bring him out of this grief. Anyway, so those were my Vayinachem.
Which I think goes into like the much bigger question of like, what is it to really be comforted? Right? Is that you find someone who reminds you of that person, you find a way to be in acceptance of it, you like enough time elapses that the acute pain is there's and the answer to all of those is of course yes, right? It's not just one or the other, but I think it raises some interesting questions around like what comfort looks like for different people in different capacities.
Right. Yeah. Right? Okay, you want to do our Kedushat Levi piece?
It's our Kedushat Levi piece. We share him. We have shared custody. Shared custody.
It's a lovely piece.
Why don't I'm curious to hear what you have to say.
No. You say it first. I just did all those. You do it first.
You've done them so well.
Thank you.
You're on a roll.
No. You do this one.
All right. Your role is terminated. Could have kept going.
It's not terminated. It's just going to be enhanced.
All right, we'll see.
Okay, maybe it's not going to be enhanced, but...
So the Kedushat Levi picks up on this idea of what does it mean that he loved her. And I think, to Rabbi Schatz's point, calling attention to the fact that this is the first time that this verb shows up in the Torah, right? What's so extraordinary about this love that this is the first time this shows up in the Torah, right? And I'll read it out. A husband can love his wife on 2 different levels. He may love her, as in be physically attracted to her, as she enables him to satisfy his desires. If this is his love, this Kedushat Levi says, and it's so interesting the way that he says this. He actually, if that's the quote unquote love it is, that's not love at all. Rak ohev et atzmo. He only loves himself, right? And just to pull that apart a little bit, right? That if all he's seeing in her is something through which he can get, like fulfill his desires, that's not really love.
Right.
It actually just reminds me of, I gave a much longer, I think it was a high holiday sermon actually on this a few years ago. Rabbi Dr. Abraham Tversky, Zichrono Livracha, he had this bit on fish love. Have you ever seen this video, Rabbi Schatz?
I don't think so. Well, I don't know.
Everyone can go on YouTube, Google Rabbi Abraham Tversky fish love. He uses it to illustrate a point, but he hears someone talking about how he loves fish, how much he loves fish, and talks about you don't love the fish, you love the way the fish tastes. You love that the fish help your stomach. You don't love fish, you love what the fish does for you. That's not love. That's just craving. That's just desire. He does a better job with it, but the point is made, notwithstanding. And then he goes on to say there are husbands who do not love their wives because they are instruments of fulfilling their physical desires, but because their wives enable them to perform their Creator's will better and more profoundly. This is the true meaning of loving your wife. Now, I'll say, like, this is A, in a pretty traditional context, and B, in a very gendered context, right? So, like yes, it's you can understand it that way. I'm sure all of the mitzvot that Yitzchak didn't know about yet were what Rivka enabled him to perform, and that's why he loved her. Yeah. But, extrapolating that out a bit, that what love is in this context is that she helped him to be the best version of himself.
Right.
And that the love isn't just that they enjoyed each other's company physically. It was that there is something about her that helped him to be the best version of who he could be in the world, which also then connects with the comfort piece, right? And part of that might be that because of their relationship, he was able to find some comfort, which helped him move out of grieving and into a place where he could be more present in the world and move on what next. But also just in general, this idea of what love can be and what a loving relationship can be is that it can help us to be versions of ourselves and achieve things in the world and grow into versions of ourselves that we really couldn't without that person with whom we're in a loving relationship. So that's what I don't know if that's where you were going to go with that, but that's what I liked about that.
Yeah, I mean I think I just like the complexity of it. Like I like the complexity of that. First of all, this implies that love grows, right? That it's not saying that it is not love to be attracted to someone and find initial connection with that person that then grows the love, but that can't be the end of it, right? Some might say that's just lust,
right?
But that then there's this real, like, profound love that comes from really knowing the person and being able to be a partner in creating, whether it's a family or just life together or whatever it is, that is the complexity piece of that love. And I think that for me was the part of it that it takes the verse and it takes it from this place of, like, yes, there was this physical element of he took his wife, or he took her to become his wife, and that's physical as we read it in the Torah. But then it says, and he loved her, and that there's those two pieces of, like, I was physically attracted to her, and then it grew into this ability of knowing her and loving her and caring for her and wanting more than just the physical aspect of, as he says here, to satisfy his biological urges. Which I think biological urges is a funny term.
As a translator, I don't think Kedushat Levi said.
I hope he did. That'd be very funny. Te'u gufanit. Gufaniot.
Desire. Well, I guess.
Gufaniot is
physical
body.
Yeah. I mean, physical desire.
Anyway, so that's where I was going. The similar directions.
Yeah.
I think for me, it just, having not had a an 11-year marriage. There's less for me to pull on than there is for you to pull
12,
on.
I think.
But
yeah, 12.
12?
Yeah, 12.
Oh, 12. Ooh, sorry, excuse me, everyone. God.
You got me worried for a second. I was like, wait a minute, I think I know how many years I've been married.
12-year marriage. I still haven't had an 11-year marriage, but also haven't had a 12.
Let alone a 12-year one. Usually you go from 11 to 12.
Very
it's that
good.
11th year that you really can't skip over in there.
Yeah.
That's the kicker.
Well, it was
really...
the COVID year for you, so
Yeah. Well, let me tell you. Just as a very quick story. We've been very serious so far. So when Sarah and I adopted the cat, our first cat, because we have two.
Another class for another time.
We had to, the second cat we got, it was like just a kitten, and we were able to just like scoop it up, and he just got neutered. Sarah accidentally drugged our cat,
we don't need to actually go through all this.
He's fine. The cat's fine. He just accidentally gave him a little too much painkiller after he got neutered.
Good.
Which was very funny. A very stoned cat.
We're just going to keep going.
But the first cat we got, which we had to like adopt through this agency, we had to do this very intensive interview to get the cat. And it took an hour and a half at culminating in them like asking us, if you get divorced, who gets the cat? First of all, we have 3 kids who we've been able to care for pretty successfully for upwards of 10 years now.
Divorced, I want the kids.
So, no, that's not what's happening. That wasn't the point. The point was, if we can parent the kids, I think we can own the cat. Oh. And also that, like, we were getting asked this after a year of pandemic. Like, if you make it through a year of pandemic...
Yeah, you're probably okay.
I think... Yeah. But anyway, we have not been married for 11 years.
12.
But in fact, 12. All right. What were you saying?
No, I think that it's coming from 2 different places, given that I also haven't lived through this, like... I haven't lived through the full cycle of this, right? There are ways in which I feel like I've lived through aspects of this commentary, but not through the entirety of the cycle. And so we just came at it at 2 different experience levels. Yeah.
Well, and also that it's, we started with this a little bit, just the sequence is also interesting. And I think belies a little bit the Kedushat Levi's point, because it does say first, Vayikach et Rivka, like he took her, right? That was what was first, but it doesn't say that he loved her, right? There's a different verb there, and that he is distinguishing here between what it is to have a sexual experience with someone and to actually love them.
Yeah,
and that it's much deeper than that. And again, then I'll connect it from there into this idea of comfort, that through that love, maybe that's part of what makes it possible for him to be comforted in all the different ways we were talking about that.
Right.
That's what I got. Anything else?
Do you want to bow it?
I thought I just did.
Oh, that was the bow?
I thought it was a small bow, but it was a little.
Okay. No, that's good.
Do you have a better bow?
No, that was fine.
Do you have a big bow?
I don't.
Do you have a glorious bow to cap us off?
I don't.
All right. Well, sorry for the unsatisfying bow, everyone, but that's about the best we can do. We've done 2 of these in a row now.
I think.
So.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you're gonna. Oh.
No. I was just going to
here we go.
No, it's not a bow.
It's a bow.
No, it's not.
Okay.
I would just add that it's always interesting when a word gets brought up for the first time to see where then it gets brought up again in the Torah. So just if people are interested to have in your consciousness where the word ahava, right, where the word love comes up again in our Torah, what that relationship is. Is it a similar type of relationship? Is it a similar type of love, right? As we just discussed, there are many different types of that love. And just how the word now continues to be used now that it's been introduced to us in our Torah. That's all.
Do you know off the top of your head where it shows up next?
I believe it is with Jacob.
Oh, yeah.
But I actually don't know. I mean, that is a guess off the top of my head. That is not a fact.
Ooh, let's quickly play the concordance game and see if Rabbi Schatz is right.
Okay. People will have to wait. Because Rabbi Shapiro is
looking
it up in real time. I was wrong? Oh.
Next, there's a lot of love. There's a whole lot of love. Okay. There's a whole lot. First of all, this is the first time it shows up in the context of the first time it shows up at Bincha et Yechidcha et Asher Ahavta, which I was talking about earlier today or last week. So this is the first time it shows up in a romantic relationship.
Good. Okay, thank you for the question.
And then just a few verses later, it shows up in the context again of loving a child, that Isaac loves Esav and Rivka loves Yaakov.
So I was right, Jacob.
Yeah, but actually the next time is Esav.
Oh, it says Esav first? Interesting.
There you go. something to grow on.
Yeah.
As
Right.
we move forward, thinking about love and comfort and relationship
All
and
you
connection.
need is love.
Do.
All right, Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom from the past, the present, and the future.
I will see you next week.
I will see you
in 2.
further distance on.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
You have been listening to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. If you enjoy these podcasts, we invite you to write a review on the Apple Podcast site or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information about Temple Beth Am Los Angeles, go to tbala.org.